What's shaking, oddities? Odd man here. Hadn't done a show in a long time. I've got to do a show and kind of explain why I've been MIA, but that's another subject. I thought I would just touch base with you guys because all this crazy stuff going on. And of course, we're talking about Charlie Kirk dying, being assassinated. Everybody's throwing their 2 cents worth in, and I thought, why not talk about it? Because I have some things to say. You know, and I got to admit, I was never a big fan. I missed the whole MAGA craze because I'd already decided that the whole left-right paradigm is BS, and most of these guys are just PR for the party, and the party is part of the empire. It's part of the government. You're only allowed 2 political parties. It's very controlled. So no matter what, most of these guys only point out the bad things that one side's doing, and they praise the other side and kind of cover for them when they do bad things that even their own voters should be against. Excuse me. That being said, I hear he's a nice guy. A lot of people say that, and I've seen some clips, and I agree with most of the clips I've seen from him. The guy made a fortune doing this, and at least he was willing to debate people, go out there and put himself out there. Even though a lot of times it was younger people, at least he was willing to get these other ideas out there in places that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have been out. He had a lot of fans, extremely, extremely popular. And, you know, there's some strange occurrences that are connected to this event, just like so many of the big events that we've seen in the last 20 plus 25 years or so. And really even before that, but with the internet, you know, a lot of this stuff has been more evident, and more of us have been able to communicate and talk about it, you know what I mean? So, and by the way, you know, I want to mention something quickly too. Have you guys noticed on Facebook recently, if you're on there, they have changed when you put a link in a comment section? It's just like Instagram now. You can't click on it anymore and go to the link. I thought that was interesting because there's such an easy way for people to share information, and now you have to kind of copy it and then go on and paste it, and if it's got text in front of the address, you got to erase that, and it's just a pain in the butt. I thought, why do that? Just to make it more difficult for people? Anyway, I digress, but a lot of strange occurrences connected to Charlie's death, and I'll start with the older fellow who they first said was responsible. The guy, the older fellow that you saw that they had basically tackled, I guess, and apparently he was saying, just kill me, or I heard some people say that. This guy, apparently his name is George Zinn, and this guy was connected to 2 other major events, 2 other modern major events, in the way that he is on record calling the authorities and reporting a plane crashing into the Twin Tower, one of the towers. He is also on record calling the authorities on the day of the Boston bombing and reporting a terrorist attack. What are the chances? Really strange to me, and I haven't seen any explanation. Well, then there's the 2 guys standing behind Charlie, and they were making hand gestures, and at first I thought that was silly, and then I seen that from a couple different angles, and I was like, yeah, they absolutely are making hand gestures. And it's strange. I couldn't tell. You just can't tell who they're communicating with, right? Well, apparently the taller of the 2, the dark-haired guy, is Dan Flood, and he's a former Marine and a current executive at Turning Point. So, you know, obviously these 2 guys were with Charlie because they both also helped rush the body to the Escalade or whatever vehicle it was after he was shot. So there's that. The man in black on the roof, of course, they say was the killer, the shooter. They say that he broke down his gun, took the time to break down his gun, throw it off the roof, climb down, grab the gun, go into the woods, take the time to put the gun back together, and then lead the authorities on a 33-hour, can't find my bell, 33, ding, 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 hour manhunt. I don't know, something is not right. And even conservative talk show host Michael Savage called BS on the official story. I thought that was interesting because most people didn't have the balls to do that. And then you think about that picture that they put out of this guy. It's definitely not the same guy. This guy that they've arrested has a very particular mouth feature, and the other guy did not have that same mouth. So I don't know what the deal is. Haven't seen an explanation of that either. Somebody said, well, it was AI generated and they didn't know exactly what he looked like, but I haven't seen an explanation. Maybe that's the case. Then, and I hate to even talk about this, and people are gonna get mad at me about it, but I thought it was so very strange to have such a quick eulogy. I think on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, his wife did a public eulogy, and it was recorded and put out into the media. And I just thought, man, how could you do that after what had just happened to your husband? I mean, do that so quickly and keep it together. And I just don't understand it. It does not make sense to me. And then, and this is going to, again, make people a little uncomfortable or mad, but, you know, she filmed herself going up to the casket and holding his hands and touching his hands and saying things to him. And I just, again, do not understand why you would film yourself doing something, such a personal moment. And, you know, people are saying the hands didn't look real and those kinds of things. But if you've ever seen a dead body, a lot of times it doesn't, because there's some swelling usually and there's makeup that they put on the hand. So, you know, people say that about Elvis too. And it's all hearsay. If you're not there, you can't tell. So, you know, I'm just going to assume that he is dead, and that part is absolutely true. When we learned that he was changing his mind on Israel, you know, at first I was very skeptical of that. I know, me, right? But it was just like too on the nose, like, why would they do that in the public when they could take somebody out, you know, privately or with not nearly as much crowd fare, you know, public attention, those kinds of things, witnesses. But then, you know, you start to hear that he was changing his mind on blindly supporting Israel and their genocide and whatnot. And you hear that from several different people, and you start to see these little clips of him talking about it. And then you start to look at how influential he actually was, especially with young people. And we know from the ADL president, that leaked phone call, they have been so worried about the youth. They say it's not a left-right thing, it's an old versus young thing. And it absolutely is, because the old people have been brainwashed for so very long to just blindly do whatever Israel wants, go along with whatever the Israeli government wants, that they're just worthless. They're just, for the most part, a lot of them are just, they just go along with the government. That's it. There's no thought to it. It's just their reaction. They don't put any thought into who's being killed, all the children and the innocent people and different things like that. It's just, you know, it's, I could go into a whole thing about that, but there's no thought. It's just reaction to them. And how important that would be for them to not have Charlie talk about changing his mind on that and influencing all these other people, especially when you have people like Candace and Carlson and people like that who have come around and are really talking about this stuff, this undue influence that basically our, you know, if you get right down to it, most of our reps seem to be loyal to Israel more than us. So anyway, the more I saw about that, the more I started questioning, well, maybe they did have something to do with it. Then Bibi wastes no time going on to Fox News with Lauren Green, the religious correspondent, and talking about how much he loved Charlie and how close they were and how Charlie was about to come over to Israel and how Charlie had just told him how important Israel is, and he managed to bring up the Holocaust several times and managed to bring up anti-Semitism several times, of course, because that's what they do, man. Permanent victim status allows you to do almost anything you want to do, and that's, they got to keep that going in the public. And the older people, you know, they just got to kind of reinforce that. because I assume it's older people that mostly that watches Fox. I don't know, but uh, it's, you start to look at that, and then you look at, well, wait a minute, Ben Shapiro's taken over for Charlie, and he's one of the biggest Zionists in the world, and everybody, well, a lot of people think he's probably working for the Israeli government, right? And if that weren't enough, you find out that, well, Turning Point had made a deal back in last December with Daily War and Ben Shapiro. So, yeah, I think that Charlie had said things, and I don't have the quote in front of me, something like he couldn't say certain things about Israel. I'm paraphrasing, but that would probably be the reason right there. And you see also that J.D. Vance says he's going to do the first show, I believe, as the replacement host. And I highly doubt that he would ever say anything about his buddy Bibi and the Zionists, because obviously this administration is as in bed with the Zionists as any I've seen, and the last one was really in bed with them. So you start to look at these things and add these things up, and you realize at least something's not right. People are saying that Charlie had actually turned down the offer to go to Israel, but that's not what Bibi said. And of course, Bibi managed to mention Judeo-Christian several times, which isn't a thing, but that is part of the propaganda. And, with all this stuff going on, people have totally forgot about the Epstein thing for the most part, right? And that was the thing that people weren't forgetting about before this happened. And so you got to think about what they would do to get people's minds off that. Even Charlie himself allegedly had mentioned the connection between Epstein, Israel, and Mossad. So, you got to ask these questions because we've been lied to so much. So very much. And then, if that wasn't crazy enough, Trump posted a picture on Truth Social of him and Charlie. Now, that's not weird, no. But what is weird is the picture he posted. It has, I don't know how else to say it. It has this homosexual kind of connotation to it. It's very feminine looking, the way they are pictured together. They could have gotten a picture of them shaking hands or something like that. Really strange picture, but what makes it even weirder is on Trump's shoulder, over Trump's shoulder is the American flag, and over Kirk's shoulder is the Israeli flag. Why would an American president post that? Well, Trump is very unpredictable. He could go either way on any issue out there, right? And people know that. Come to find out, this is I guess it was like a flag, like a silk screen type thing, humongous, that they actually made and put on a building in Israel. It's coming down the side of the building. So Trump, somebody took a picture and he posted that on his social media. And again, I just think that's a very strange picture for those two reasons that I said. Out of all the pictures he could have posted. I don't know. I mean, look at it. It's on my social media. Did we talk about... Oh, of course, while all this is going on, right, guys? You guys remember the Rep. Brian Mast? I forget which state he's in. He served in the IDF and actually wore his IDF uniform to the Capitol. He is sponsoring this legislation to basically make it illegal to criticize the Israeli government. They're saying terrorism and all that stuff like they always do. That's how they destroyed free speech on college campuses. They just label everybody a terrorist sympathizer, a Hamas sympathizer, and destroy free speech. And it had to come under a Republican administration, and I've been telling you guys that. Well, they're doing the same thing here. They're trying to. And at the same time, Rubio's trying to pass legislation to take away people's passports for criticizing the Israeli government. And while this is going on, Republican skank Lauren Boebert is leading, or I think they'd actually passed, some more legislation to make it illegal for companies to boycott Israeli companies. So, we've seen legislation like this in the past, and we've seen reps or former reps say they pretty much make every rep agree to not support a boycott against Israeli goods. So it's just more of the same. And then while that was going on, the House, they passed the NDAA, and we've gotten so many good things out of the NDAA, I jokingly say, like the repeal of the provisions in the Smith-Mundt Act, which Trump has never reinstated, which allows them to beat us down with domestic propaganda so they can lie right to our faces and we can't do anything about it. $650 million in this NDAA towards Israel buying weapons. In a very rich country already, one of the biggest arms sellers already, and they don't need our money, but they're getting it, of course. Now, if that weren't enough, Republicans are doxing people now that said bad things about Charlie. And, it's one thing to make violent threats. It's a whole nother to be an asshole. They're destroying our free speech. And they're doing exactly what Democrats did. So nobody's going to have the right eventually to say anything unless it's in support of the official government narrative and the official cronyist governments of our government's narrative, if you know what I mean. So it didn't take the right to turn to the left. They went right to it. Making a database of people who say ugly things. That's what has happened to the Patriot Party. They're wanting to criminalize insults and ugly jokes, and they'll still claim that they're for free speech, and half the people will still believe it. Pam Bondi did she did an interview today, and she's talking about hate speech, and she mentioned that numerous times, and it is getting some pushback, thank God, but, what will come of it? 99% of Republicans, they wouldn't knowingly give the Democrats all the power they're giving to Trump and previous Republican administrations, but yet that's exactly what happens, because that's how our republic works. That's how our political system works. Every power you give or allow your administration because you like them, they're from your party or whatever, the next administration will have that and more. And people just can't seem to figure that out. The system is weaponized against us, man, because the party people are so emotional and petty, they don't care anymore if what they cheer on comes right back around and destroys them. That's where we're at. People act like petulant children. So the voters, they create their own monsters, They overlook the bad things their guys do, give them more and more power, and that's why government has so much control, because it's went back and forth again and again and again. And it's kind of like Nietzsche, that quote about fighting monsters, and eventually the abyss will stare back at you if you look at it long enough, and people have turned into monsters themselves, and the abyss is staring back at them. And the interesting thing I want to say to end this about creating a martyr, and I don't mean to sound heartless or anything. This is not anything bad towards Kirk. But the interesting thing about creating a martyr is it often doesn't benefit the group that took him out or took her out. It benefits the group who the martyr belongs to. It creates even a more magnified sense of righteous indignation amongst the people. It rallies the troops like nothing else can. And like I said, Epstein who? People are forgetting about that. So at a time when they needed a huge distraction, they sure got it. And look how people reacted. People went crazy on X, calling for a civil war and all kinds of other things. A lot of big names too. And I said, talk to your kids, your teenagers and your 20-somethings about these kinds of things, and tell them not to listen to these people so closely, because they could talk them into doing things that they could never take back. They may go out and do violent acts on people who don't even deserve it. They would have us fighting. It would be neighbor on neighbor if we listen to these people and give in to them. So we got to fight that, because that's just divide and conquer, divide and rule. That's what the globalists want. And so we can't give in to that. So talk to your kids about that. Tell them to take a step back from this stuff and not listen so closely to these pundits who will not have anything to pay for. Even if there was a civil war, most of these people won't be engaging in it. They'll be behind fenced-in, gated-in properties most likely, or high-rises. They'll have guards and different things like that. They'll be far away from the fighting. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you guys for the patience. I know I've taken some time off, but I'm coming back. I want to just tell people, always look for whom it benefits, no matter what the event is, and just put the information together and the facts together yourselves, and don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be asking questions, because again, lies, lies, lies from the government. Damn it, we should be asking questions and trying to find out what's really going on. We need to be concerned citizens, because things are getting bad out there. With that being said, don't lose hope, my friends. Stick to your principles. Cheers and blessings, and remember, their order is not our order. See you guys.